What's going on, YouTube? All right, so I'm back with another video. I got a question about installing a clutch and in particular the flywheels onto an Intech or basically a Nova engine. So basically what it was, the person was saying that every time they installed their clutch and their flywheel and everything onto the Intech engine that they have, it was basically binding up. And they did all of the tricks and everything, so I'm gonna just show them exactly what it is that I do to install flywheels and stuff on engines, and it should work on any engine in particular, any engine. At the end, basically, he said that it really wasn't the actual clutch bell. He was saying that every time he tightens up the clutch nut, he gets a lot of binding, in the flywheel assembly. So here we go. This is going to be basically a flywheel or clutch kit from an Infinity IFB8 buggy. So with their particular kit, they call for 3 of these shims right here. Don't ask me what size it is, because I did not even look to see what size they were. But it calls for 3 of them. And then the most important thing is the crankshaft in these engines. As you can sort of see, if you look where I put the shims at, you can see where the crankshaft can move in and out. And that's usually where the binding will be at. Whereas once you install everything or whatever you're doing, the crankshaft will be pushed in, which actually pushes the crank journal where the crank rod rides on. It pushes that up against the back plate on the inside of the engine, and then that's where you'll feel the binding, because once the clutch nut pushes everything back, it'll just get stuck on that back plate. So the main thing is, to pull it out as much as you can. But so every time you put something on here, like I put the collet, and make sure you always use the collet that comes with the clutch and not the collet that comes with the kit. And every time you put something on the crankshaft, once again, you gotta pull it out. Pull it out and then slide everything back as far as you can get it. So I have that on. And the flywheel. Once again, pull that out as much as I can. Take the clutch nut. Just basically get that started. And once again, pull that out. And as I'm pulling that out, I'm trying to pull the flywheel towards the engine. Tighten that down a little bit more. Then I ain't really had no pliers and stuff with me, so going with some shock pliers on this one. So I'll put the shock pliers on it. And I'm pushing down. And it's gripping the flywheel with the shock pliers as I tighten this up. And as you see, there's no play. Try and get you in there. Maybe a tick of play. A tick. So what I can do is, once again, pull that out. It's a little cumbersome with the way I'm doing it. I'm just trying to do this real quick. But I let the engine hang. let the engine hang under its weight. Let's pull in that flywheel and the crankshaft out. And some people crank down on it. I don't really crank down on that clutch nut. But as you see, you know, plenty smooth, no binding. And that's pretty much how I install a flywheel on any particular engine. And like I said, there's no binding on this Intech. I have a Nova, what's it, T6 .24. There's no binding on that particular engine. So, like I said, just always pull this out, and then when you add in your like your clutch bell and everything, you know, put your bearings on. I usually put at least a 0.2 shim right here on top of the clutch nut. Put the bottom bearing on. Make sure that my clutch bell sits up off of the clutch shoes, at least 2 millimeters, and off of the actual flywheel that is not rubbing. And I will shim that behind the bottom bearing over top of the clutch nut, just enough to give me some space here and some space above these pins in the clutch shoes. Then bearing, clutch, outer bearing, and then you use just enough shims out here on top of the outer bearing so that you have like a little bit of infloat, maybe 1.5 millimeters, you know, 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter or so. Not a lot, you know. I'm saying a bunch of numbers, but basically not a lot. You don't want to be able to pull it up and push it back down. All you want to be able to do is just sort of rock it a little bit, up and down, just enough where as though once it heats up, that bearing, the bearing and the shims, you know, the shims will act like sort of like springs. Once they get hot, everything expands, and you don't want it to be where it expands so much that those shims at the end and the shim down here lock the bearings up. And that's pretty much it. All right, so I hope this helps. You know, any other questions, just let me know. All right.